So I have so many great tips for you guys because I really believe in saving money in my household. And with saving money in my household, that means that nothing goes to waste. And I challenge myself all the time to really look at the foods that we're eating and how can I use it instead of throwing it away, because it's so precious, these resources, and it's a precious resource for all of us. But not only that, we want to make sure that we're not wasting our financial resources with food that we can't consume, that when we do consume them makes us healthier. So we want to lower those risks of picking those fresh produce and being nervous that those foods are going to go to waste. And I'm going to give you my personal tips to make your produce last longer so that you can have time to eat them within your meals. So we're going to start here with, I have some lettuces here, and most of this is from our garden at Crossing Healthcare. I've got here some baby kale. It looks really fresh and beautiful. I also have a micro butter lettuce that's here that we just picked out of the garden before we came over. And I also have some Chinese lettuce. Chinese lettuce is really great. It's got a peppery taste, almost like horseradish. And so you don't need to use a lot of that when you're cooking. And so, and you've got to do something with it quickly, because as you can see here, even though it was taken from the garden just maybe an hour or so ago, it is already starting to wilt a little bit. So that's the key, is to do something with it so that you can preserve it over the long haul. Moisture really is what causes your produce to go bad. So when we look at preserving our produce, when we get it home from the store, or we go to Crossing Healthcare's garden and get that $5 market bag, which we're going to talk about in a minute, or we are in our own garden picking the vegetables and the fruits from our own garden, what do we do with it to make it last longer? So we want to eliminate that moisture. A lot of times with a lot of the foods that you get, it doesn't make sense to wash it right away. Things like strawberries or grapes, you don't want that moisture in there to where it gets mushy and it starts to mold very quickly, because temperature is one thing that mold really likes, or bacteria. And so with those types of foods, I would say keep them unwashed until you're ready to use them, and then pull out what you're going to use and wash those so that you can keep that moisture barrier low. Also with things like lettuce or spinach, strawberries are one that's really key for this. When you see that one bad fruit, or that one wet mushy spinach leaf in your bag of spinach or your carton of strawberries, pluck that sucker out and toss it, because you want to get that out, and then that spinach, those strawberries will last longer. So just take out that bad apple. Remember, the bad apple spoils the whole bunch, so we want to make sure that we remove it. The other thing that we want to do with like lettuce to keep it crisp in this sense is you could put it in an ice water bath to crisp it back up, because guess what? Lettuce is mostly made of water. So we want to be able to do that. But when you take it out, make sure that you lay them down on paper towel. And I'm going to move this over because we're done with it now. So we want to lay it out on paper towel, and paper towel can be our friend, and it's got a lot of great uses when you're preserving your produce. So lay out your lettuces. If you want to do spinach the same way, the key is to make sure that they get really dry. So you could take a secondary paper towel, lay it over the top. You don't want to press too hard. You just want to make sure that your lettuce is dry. The other thing that you can do is, whether it's a bag of spinach from the store or a Ziploc bag like this, or even the container, you know, the plastic containers that it comes in, what you want to do is you want to go ahead and put that into your baggie. Take that same paper towel, not the ones that are wet. Get a new one, a dry one. And you want to just fold it up. Go ahead and stick it in your bag, like so, right? And if it's a bag of spinach, make sure to pull that spinach out evenly over the bag. Don't let it mush up or bunch, because if there is a couple pieces that are wet and mushy, it'll start to really deteriorate that whole bag. But go ahead and take your Ziploc bag or the plastic container and put the lid on it, and then flip that right over. That's all you have to do. Then that way the paper towel absorbs the moisture in your lettuce, and then you can go ahead and fold that up and put it in your refrigerator, and it will stay crisp, long lasting. You'll be surprised how long that lasts. The other thing to do is, if you have herbs, which I don't have any herbs here, but let's pretend that our radishes, these are herbs. So let's maybe cilantro, or maybe this is rosemary, or gosh, basil, or anything of that nature. Again, you want to keep those fresh. So what you would do is go ahead and wash them, dampen your paper towel, and then just fold the base of it like this. And then you're going to stick that in your baggie and keep it open, because remember, moisture again can be your enemy with this. The other thing that you can do is, if let's say I got cilantro from the store and it comes in the bag, the produce bag that I pull off and put it in, just toss that bag and put your produce just like this in your refrigerator, because if it stays together, that moisture will deteriorate that much quicker and you won't be able to use it. So you want to make sure that you do that. Again, we talked about things that really we're not going to use all of. So in my family, if I have celery in the recipe, I'm not going to use the whole head of celery. So just like with green peppers or anything of that nature, if I have something left over, I'm going to go ahead and dice it and freeze it. Great things that you can freeze are onions. You can freeze green peppers. You can freeze celery perfectly and use it later in soups or stocks and anything like that, especially if you have scraps. Any kind of scraps that you can use, you can go ahead and cut the butts off of. Put that down again. So you can go ahead and cut that off, and then just go ahead and quarter it. And you could literally make spaghetti sauce, putting in tomatoes, squash, zucchini, your onions, garlic, all in one pot. Let it cook on low overnight. Get an immersion blender, and I found one for like $7, and it works beautifully. So you can do the immersion blender, add in your seasonings, and then you can have a great spaghetti sauce using the leftover vegetables that you had. And then you can pull things out of the freezer. What are your tips? Share with us what they are, because one lady told me that her tip for her family was taking anything that was not used and putting it in one section of her refrigerator, and it pardon me, in that section of the refrigerator, that's the leftover section. How many times have you bagged up your leftovers and it falls to the back of the fridge, at the bottom of the fridge, and you lose track of it? And so every week, once a week, it might be leftover night. She pulls that right off that shelf and uses it all in a casserole or anything like that. So it's a great way to use those. Casseroles are great with vegetables that are a little droopy or a little sad. Don't throw them away. Go ahead and cut them. You can freeze them. You can put them in soups or stews or casseroles, and you won't know the difference. So don't waste those vegetables and fruits. When we're taking a look at like the butter lettuce, another way to do this is, when you wash it, never cut lettuce with your knives. It causes them to go brown quickly. Take your fingers and go ahead and tear that lettuce into small bite-sized pieces. Remember, your hands are clean, so that's not going to be a problem. And then you're not going to have the browning of the lettuce for so long, so it can last for a day in a lunchbox, and then it's going to taste great. So you can preserve it that way. Carrots and radishes. When you pull them from your garden, a lot of times people will continue to keep those stems on. There's a lot of water in the leaves of this. And so what will happen is within even a few hours, the water will drain down into the root, the vegetable root. So you want to stop that, because remember, moisture can be our problem. To stop that, we just cut the moisture issue away. So you will not have this get soggy as quickly, because that water's not draining back into the root. And so then you're going to want to take care of it like that. And carrots are the same way. So when they get flimsy and floppy, you can avoid that by cutting off the leaf. Or if you wait too long, don't throw it away. Use it in those other things that are hidden. I have another great one. So for fruits, if let's say you have some droopy, sad strawberries, again, our first instinct might be to throw it away. My instinct is to freeze them so that we can put them in smoothies and no one would even know the difference. Bananas. My kids love bananas. But one of the tricks that I've learned at my house is buy them when they're green. They don't have to be fully green, but buy them when they're green. But at our house, if I were to leave the bananas all together, right, and they ripen on the counter, the kids will come and pull one. Well, have you ever pulled one and then another one splits? And they leave it there and it turns brown really quickly, and then no one touches it because they don't want it. My trick as a mama is I bring those bananas home and I just, while they're still in that green and yellow stage, tear them off very easily, and then they're all separate and I pile them there and they can just grab and go, and none of them will go to waste. But let's say those bananas turn a little brown. Everyone knows you shouldn't throw them away. Go ahead and freeze them. You can use them again in smoothies if you don't want to bake or do a banana bread or anything like that. Throw them in smoothies. It makes it really easy, and you don't have to waste your money, and you don't have to feel guilty about spending your money on things like this that might go to waste. One of the last things that I want to talk about is, this is a zucchini, but it reminds me of an avocado because of the shape. And you might be thinking that I'm really silly, and I am. However, avocados are wonderful, and they do ripen really quickly. And avocados produce an ethylene gas. They're not the only ones that do that. But when you get avocados, the one thing that you want to do is remember that that gas that they emit will ripen everything else around it that it touches. So those things will ripen quickly. Make sure they have their own home away from everything else so that you can have everything last a little bit longer. The avocado itself, if you're going to use it, and like green peppers, keep the core and the seeds for the side that you're not going to use at that time. So any kind of stone fruits or an avocado that has the pit in the center, if I were to separate that avocado and put it in half, the pit part of it I would keep and push to the side. The other part I might use for my sandwiches at that time. The part with the pit, that pit helps to keep it green longer, so that I might not be able to use the top surface, but I could mash it and it'll be bright and green in no time. So I know I went through quite a bit today, but those are my favorite tips to really taking the produce that you get, not being afraid to purchase it or pick it up, because you can do these simple things at home that make it last even longer. Having paper towel. Put folded paper towel in your vegetable drawers at the base, and just putting the vegetables in there when they're dry and not in bags will even help it keep it longer, because like the spinach that we had or the lettuce that we had, that paper towel will absorb all that moisture and keep your vegetables healthier, fresh, crisper, longer.
Thank you so much for joining us today. We hope you all found these tips helpful, and hope that you guys can use these tips in your own life. So make sure you come out and join us from 10 to 1 every Friday.
Eat, Move, Save.